this video, we're going to be setting up some more UI elements. We're going to be making some health bars, and we're going to be handling our player actually dying. Before we cover off some of the UI stuff, I did want to make a couple of quick updates to our game. I did realize that when you play, you can pause in the main menu, which is not something that we want. So we have to make a couple of quick updates. In our level manager, let's create a constant of our starting level path. And it's going to equal whichever starting level that you're going to be using. So for me, I am using the test scene. So I'm just going to click and drag this in here. So what we need to do is get our main menu's file path. So we're just going to make this a variable called main menu file path. It's going to be a string, and it's going to equal this. Not a preload, we just want it as a string. And what we're going to be doing here is checking to see that if we're in our main menu, we can't pause. So we need to also evaluate here on getTree current scene scene file path doesn't equal our main menu file path. So now in our main menu, when we press play, we shouldn't be able to hit escape, which is mine. We should just be able to go right into our game, and then we can pause as normal throughout our game. Let's actually make this a constant though, because this shouldn't be changing throughout our game. So let's just make this a constant. Okay, now we can move on to our health bars. Let's go back to our player script. In our player scene, we need to add a canvas layer. So it's going to hold our UI elements. And inside of here, what we're going to be doing is adding a texture progress bar. There's a normal progress bar as well, but we're going to be using images to fill ours. So that's why we're going to be using a texture progress bar. And in the assets folder, I did add, under the UI directory, I added a health bar folder, and it's going to have all the assets that we're going to need for this. So inside of our textures, let's go look at this. What we're going to do is in the under, which is what draws under the progress bar, so it's our background. What we want to do is have it be red. Our progress is going to be green. And then in over, this is just an overlay on the image. So this has some styling elements for it. So we just want to place that in the over. If I go in here, you can see what this bar is going to look like. And to demonstrate what it looks like with green, we can add our value to be 50, and that's what our bar is going to look like as it's filling. I do want to make this a little bit bigger though. I think it's a little small right now. So let's go about making this a little bit bigger. So let's go back to our canvas layer. And what we're going to do here, we're just going to change the scale. So we're just going to make it 3 times bigger. That might actually be too big. Let's do 2. So now we're going to move this into the top right of our viewport, which is going to be this blue box here. So I'm going to have this in the top right. I think that's just where I'm going to want it. You can put it in your top left. It doesn't really matter. But now when we go to play our game, this is going to be there. It's going to be static on the right side the entire time, no matter what we're doing. But it's not doing anything now. We need to actually hook this up to our player's health. So let's go back to the player script. We're going to rename the canvas layer to just be the health canvas layer. And then we're going to rename the texture progress bar to health bar. We need to create an onReady variable for the health bar. And now in the ready method, we need to actually hook this up. So we're going to call this health bar, and the value is going to be equal to our player's max health. So we have this set up already. Or sorry, it's going to be our current health. And then in the health bar dot max value, it's going to be equal our max health. So now when we open this up, we play our game, we have a full green bar indicating full health. Now we need to start subtracting this when we are taking damage from enemies. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking our health bar. We're just going to minus equal the amount on the value. So now every time that we run into an enemy, it's going to be subtracting some of the health from our bar, and it will dynamically start subtracting. So you can see there, our bar is working. Okay. We need to also handle that when our player has 0 health, we actually die. So we're going to need to make another method, and we're just going to call it die. Let's make it down here. And so what we're going to be looking for up in on take damage is if current health. I'm going to bring this current health up actually, because that's where we should be doing the math on that. We're going to do if current health is less than or equal to 0, we die. And for right now, just to demonstrate this, we're just going to queue free, just so we can show how this is going to work. So you get an error here because we got rid of our player and we're trying to do some direction setting here. But prior to doing that, stop this. Let's go back to our player script. And before we actually, whenever we're doing this, we're not just going to queue free. We are going to have a game over screen where you're going to be able to restart the game or just quit. So we can go ahead and make that real quick. We're going to put this in our UI. We're going to make a new folder actually. I'm just going to call it death menu. We're just going to create 2 new files in here. We're going to have death menu, which is going to be user interface. We're going to create the scene as well. I already created the scene. We need to create the script as well. Okay, so let's go into our pause menu and let's copy this. We're going to change this node to a canvas layer. Let's drag our script on here. Okay, so this is fine. Paused. Everything here is actually okay. We're not going to be handling anything on our inputs. We don't need this. We actually can we can get rid of all these buttons except for the quit, because we still are going to want to be able to quit. Don't need this variable either. So let's go into our scene. Okay. We need to actually create the quit button though, so let's just go ahead and delete this now. Let's disconnect. Okay, good. We don't have any signals connected. Let's add 2 buttons. Just duplicate them. This is going to be restart button, and then we're going to have quit button. All right, so let's do this, quit, and what we can do here too is we can apply our theme that we made earlier. So now all of our buttons will have a constant theme. So if we save that, go to our scene, we have these 2 buttons, and what I'm going to do is put them in a VBox container just so they stay aligned with each other. Okay, let's pop these. We're going to put the VBox container right in the middle, and we're going to give it some spacing. Let's just crank this up to 10 right now. That should be fine. I am going to make these a little bit bigger too. Okay, cool. Let's go back to our script, and now we need to connect these buttons. So we click on our buttons, go to our node, and on button pressed, connect that. Let's also do it for our quit button. Okay, the quit button is going to be the easiest. We can go back to our pause menu, and we're just going to do the get tree.quit. Okay, the default visibility of this is going to be off, and then on restart button clicked, this is going to be, we're just going to reboot our game. So in order to do this, we're actually going to make another change or two. We're going to go back to our main menu. We're going to get rid of this variable and pop it in our level manager, and we're going to make it a constant. So now we can reference this in multiple places. So in main menu, this is going to change to just level manager dot starting level path, and this should be unaffected. And then in our death menu, on this press, we'll be able to do level manager dot change level, and we give it the level path of level manager dot starting level path. We're going to make a ready function as well, just to make sure that our visible is equal to false. We just want to make sure that this isn't going to be seen. Now we need to make sure that the death menu is actually going to show when we die. So you need to go back to our player script, and we're going to need to make a signal on the player. Signal, player died. And we are going to need to player died dot emit. We're going to get rid of the queue free. And we can go back to our death menu. In our ready method, we need to connect to our player died signal. Dot connect. And then we're going to need to make a method here, which is on player died. So we can make this. And first thing we're going to do is get tree dot paused equals true. Then we're going to make this visible equals true. And in order for this to work, we need to add this as a global as well. So let's go look for our death menu. Auto load the scene. Let's add it. It's fine to be the last one. Okay, we have to do another couple things before we can actually get this to work. First thing is going to be inside of our process. We're going to set this to always. And we actually need to update part of our player manager. I was looking over this and I was realizing we were never actually adding a child inside of our player manager to the scene. So we're going to do inside of our player manager, we're going to get rid of this await. We don't need this. And then in our level, we have to add 2 lines. So the first thing we're going to do is add a child to the scene, or to our level, in player manager player. And then we're going to set our player manager's position, players.global position is going to equal to something that we're going to call player spawn.global position. Okay, we haven't created this, so we also need to make this. Inside of our test scene, we're going to add a marker 2D, and we're going to call this our player spawn. In order to access this directly, you see we have a % sign in front of the player spawn name. We want to go and right click on our marker 2D node and hit access as unique name, and then now we can access this from anywhere. So now inside of our 2D scene, you can see that we do have a player spawn. It's up here. I'm going to move this to be right where our player is, and we can actually delete our player out of this scene since we're going to be adding it as a child. So let's delete the player. So now we should be able to play this. When we take enough hits, we die. We can restart if we want. It just quit out, but that's okay. We will fix that right now. So to fix this, we have to do 2 quick things. We have to remake this invisible, and then we need to unpause the game. Okay, now let's try this. So now we're trying to add another instance of our player manager's player to the scene. So now if you remember in our level manager script, in this section here, we're queuing this level when we're getting through all of its children of the root node. We're queuing all of the levels, the level and its children free. So this is getting rid of our player. So back in our death menu script, before we restart the level, we need to go into our player manager .player, and then we need to do player manager .player .instantiate. We need to create a new player. Okay, and now that worked. We just fully restarted our level. If you notice in there too, the player wasn't able actually to die after we restarted, we need to reconnect our player died signal. So we're actually going to make another quick function called connect signals. And all we're going to do is this. And now we can, on ready, just call connect signals. And we're also going to reconnect the signals after we instantiate a new player. Okay, so let's test this out. Okay, died, we restart. All right, this works. We also want to make sure we do this when the player falls to his death. That should just be an instant death. So what we're gonna have to do is we can create sort of something similar to our world boundary. So we're gonna create, what are we going to create? We're gonna create an area 2D. We're gonna give it a collision shape. We're gonna do another world boundary. Okay, so we can save this. We're gonna call this death boundary. You can save this into the same place that we saved our world boundary in levels. Okay. Now back in our test scene, let's drag this in. Should spell this correctly. Death boundary, we need to call it that. Our death boundary. Now we can go back to our test scene. Just rename this. And let's drag this one down. Just gonna make it down here. Okay. Now we need to attach a script to this. And we need to connect a signal. So we're going to connect the body entered signal. And then if body is player, player manager, player manager dot player die. Okay. So now when we fall to our death, we should instantly hit that scene. Okay, so that didn't work because when I was renaming it, it didn't properly connect. So I have to, if you re-add the death boundary, you'll see that these all have their signals now. And now when we play, okay, so that's just a simple setup of our health bar and making sure that our player can actually die throughout our game. Quick edit here after I was done recording. If you also wanted to, you don't have to use the death boundary. If you wanted to, you could also just set this up via the code. So if you see this right here in our process method, all I'm doing is checking for the difference between our global position.y and our player camera.limit bottom. I'm just checking if it's greater than 200. You can see in the test scene, I moved our death boundary, and we get the same death scene. So there's definitely more than one way to do this, and hopefully you found this helpful.